Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Nobody in that stadium could have predicted what happened next. Nobody. Not the coaches, not the commentators, not the 22,000 fans packed into every inch of Riverside Arena on that cold November evening. And certainly not the opposing team, who had spent the entire week preparing for a very different version of Drew Callahan. But that's the thing about Drew. Just when you think you've figured him out, he does that. The night had started like any other championship game. High stakes, electric atmosphere, the kind of tension that makes your chest tight just from watching. Both teams had clawed their way through an entire season to reach this moment, and it showed. Every possession was a battle. Every timeout felt like a war council. The scoreboard swapped leads so many times that fans on both sides had practically given up trying to keep their hearts from hammering out of their chests. With 4 minutes left, Drew's team, the Riverside Falcons, trailed by 9 points. 9 points! In a game where every possession was gold, 9 might as well have been 90. The commentators had already begun their quiet pivot toward the narrative of a valiant but ultimately defeated Falcons squad. The cameras kept cutting to the dejected faces in the crowd. People were leaving, actually leaving. But Drew wasn't leaving. He pulled his teammates into a huddle during the timeout and said something that nobody on camera could hear. Whatever it was, the body language shifted immediately. Backs straightened, eyes hardened. 3 of his teammates, who had been visibly exhausted, suddenly looked like they'd been plugged into the wall. What followed was nothing short of miraculous. Drew orchestrated a 4-minute stretch of basketball that will be replayed on highlight reels for the next decade. He scored 7 points himself, assisted on 2 more, and made a defensive play that drew gasps from even the most casual fans in the building. With 30 seconds left, the Falcons had clawed all the way back. The score was tied. 22,000 people were on their feet. Nobody was leaving now. The opposing team, the Eastbridge Titans, brought the ball up slowly. Their point guard, Marcus Webb, one of the most seasoned veterans in the league, dribbled methodically, chewing up the clock. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. The Titans were clearly going to hold for the last shot, force overtime at worst, win it at best. It was the textbook move, the safe move. But Drew wasn't playing by the textbook. With 7 seconds on the clock, Drew made a decision that defied every instinct, every coaching manual, every conventional piece of wisdom in the sport. Instead of sitting back in the standard defensive position, instead of protecting against the drive, guarding the perimeter, doing what every single person in that arena expected him to do, he stepped forward. Not just forward, he completely abandoned his assignment. The Titans' bench erupted. Their coach shot to his feet. Marcus Webb's eyes widened because suddenly, inexplicably, he had a clear passing lane that hadn't existed half a second ago. He fired the ball across court to their best shooter, Danny Okafor, who was standing wide open at the three-point line. The crowd sucked in a collective breath. This was it. This was the mistake that was going to cost the Falcons everything. 22,000 people watched in horror as the ball left Webb's hands in what seemed like slow motion. And then Drew moved. What nobody had seen, what nobody had anticipated, was that Drew hadn't abandoned his assignment out of confusion or exhaustion or panic. He had baited Webb. He had read 3 sequences ahead like a chess grandmaster, knew exactly where the ball was going, and had deliberately created the opening to engineer the steal. The moment the ball left Webb's fingers, Drew was already there. He materialized out of nowhere, cutting across the lane at full sprint, and intercepted the pass with 2 seconds left on the clock. 2 seconds! He didn't even dribble. He turned, squared up from beyond half court, and launched. The buzzer sounded before the ball reached its peak. 22,000 people watched it arc through the air in absolute, total, thunderstruck silence. The commentators said nothing. The coaches said nothing. The players on both benches stood completely frozen. The ball dropped through the net without touching the rim. What happened next is almost impossible to describe. The silence lasted exactly one more second, a single, suspended, disbelieving second, before the arena simply exploded. People were screaming, crying, hugging strangers, spilling drinks, tumbling over seats. The Falcons' bench poured onto the court in a wave. Drew disappeared underneath a mountain of teammates. In the chaos, one camera found Marcus Webb standing at half court, still staring at the basket. He wasn't angry. He wasn't arguing with officials. He was just stunned. A 12-year veteran who had seen everything this game had to offer, standing completely still with the expression of a man who had just witnessed something he couldn't fully process. Nobody could. That's what Drew Callahan does. That's who Drew Callahan is. Just when the world writes the ending, he picks up the pen and writes a completely different one. And nobody sees it coming.